Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another.
Oh my God!
Bad feedback. I'm just going to feedback here quickly. It's coming from your end, Dorcas. So, welcome to another edition of the Skeptic Haven show. We are going to talk today about the end of the world. So, this is a space where, we mainly examine extraordinary claims and we apply reason, evidence, and a healthy dose of critical thinking to this. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that is equal parts fascinating, disturbing, and deeply revealing about the human psyche. It's all these fringe prophets and apocalyptic groups that are sprouting like mushrooms here in Africa. So now let's be clear, Africa is home to thousands of vibrant, very diverse religious communities. Many of them claim to offer spiritual comfort, social cohesion, and moral guidance. But like anywhere in the world, there are always the outliers. And these are the self-proclaimed prophets who claim divine revelation. They predict the end of the world. And sometimes they lead their followers into tragedy. In recent years, we have seen headlines that read like dystopian fiction. Mass graves in Kenya's Shakahola forest, where over 200 people were starved to death after being told that the end of the world is nigh. Prophets declare specific dates for the rapture. Entire communities start abandoning work, family, and medicine in anticipation of divine intervention. Now, these aren't just quirky superstitions. They are real-world examples that affect real-world people. And, when you detach from evidence and accountability, you can spiral into a place where you are manipulated, exploited, and harmed very easily. So today we're going to ask, what makes apocalyptic prophecy so potent in certain contexts? Why do people believe prophets who make falsifiable and repeatedly failed predictions? And what role do social, economic, and political factors play in creating fertile ground for these movements? So joining me today, we've got a panel of skeptics, atheists, critical thinkers who are going to bring their experience, insight, and expertise into this discussion. We'll do a couple of case studies, and then we are going to have a panel discussion. So this isn't about, I have to caveat this again, this isn't about mocking faith or mocking believers. It's about asking necessary hard questions. It's about protecting vulnerable people, and it's about understanding how reason and skepticism can be tools of compassion in a world that is hungry for meaning. Right, so let's dive in. I'm going to try to unmute your audio here again.
Dork.
Oh, I'm getting a
very
feedback on there.
Unfortunately, I don't have earphones. My earphones got spoiled today.
Yeah. Do me a favor and just lower your volume.
On my device or as I speak?
Your speakers.
The speakers
that are playing the audio. Because your microphone is speaking.
Okay.
Let me see. It might be on my end. The David is right.
That's right.
I'm telling you.
David
stream without problems.
Today that I took Jesus.
Oh my.
Let me. Idiot. Test.
There we go.
Is that better?
No, still another.
Okay, well, it's definitely not
coming from my end.
But maybe what we can do is I can just I'm muting myself and only mute. I mean, I can mute myself, then unmute when you ask me a question, so that we can.
Good.
I know it's on my end because I don't have earphones. They got spoiled just a few minutes ago. Yeah.
Okay. Let's. Where was I? Right. So, prior to going into this whole journey of looking for the apocalyptic cults, I said to myself, this is a fringe movement. This is a fringe movement. I'm not going to be able to find one or two. And then, lo and behold, what did I find? The funny thing as well is that okay, so let me give you the list of apocalyptic cults. Now, this is in recent memory, right? So the one we've already mentioned, which is Paul Mackenzie, who in Kilifi County, Kenya, took like hundreds of people into this cult compound where they were starved, and he instructed them to fast. And when they fast, they will meet Jesus. And this resulted in numerous deaths from starvation. So his apocalyptic claim was that he predicted the end of the world and urged followers to abandon food, family, and worldly possessions. So he's been arrested and charged with terrorism and manslaughter. Then we move on to another guy, Joseph Sunday Abada. He's from the Brotherhood of the Cross and Star in Nigeria. While not exclusively apocalyptic, his sect includes millenarian beliefs, which claim there's going to be this divine revelation. And he's known for his prophetic declarations about judgment and end times. So this group also has a lot of isolationists, and this seems to be a hallmark with all these cults, that they isolate their members from the rest of society because they're easier to control, obviously. Then we have Kenyan number 2, Mr. Isaiah Mwero from Kenya, Western Kenya, self-proclaimed prophet who predicted the end of the world on a specific date. First it was 2017, then it was 2020. So I don't know what the next date is, but this he was urging his followers to sell their property and prepare for the rapture. All his predictions failed, and he later retracted and revised his dates and drew a lot of criticism. Kenya number 2, we have Eliud Mangale from Mombasa. He runs the independent prophetic ministry, gained attention for predicting the end of the world in 2020 due to divine judgment over sin and corruption. And it's 2025 already, so I think that's another fail. The local press highlighted his warnings, and no mass following or incidents were reported after that. Then we have one from our side of the continent. We have got Prophet Onthatile from Botswana. He is in 2021 self-proclaimed prophetess, predicted the end of the world, urging people to prepare spiritually and materially. Her claims went viral on social media, but were widely dismissed by mainstream churches, because how do you profit from the end of the world, So, of course, the churches are going to say, like, nah, let them keep coming to church, end of the world, what you talking about? Then Kenyan number, why so many from Kenya? There's like 1, 2, this is another Kenyan.
It must be a portal of the end of the world.
There's something in the water there in Kenya, I'm telling you. Something that they drink in the water there. We have William Waitala. He is a former Anglican priest turned independent prophet. He preached about the imminent end of the world and the need for repentance, known for dramatic public rituals and warnings of divine wrath. He operates a very small following, but reportedly he's not linked to any violence or harm, but he's still considered very much a fringe figure in this business of the apocalypse. Next up, we have got, this is a Pan-African preacher, so the followers of William M. Branham in Africa. Although Branham was an American preacher, his teachings have a very significant following in parts of East, West, and Southern Africa. So he's also an apocalyptic preacher, claimed to be the last prophet and that the end is nigh, the end is imminent. It's always just around the corner, very, very soon, any day now, any time now. And then 20,000 years later, it's still any day now. Just wait. Right, moving on to the Hall of Shame. We have 2 more to go. Number 8, we have got Prophet Mariam from Uganda, a female prophet who gained attention for predicting disasters and the end of the world in 2022. Now, guess the method of prophecy. She dreamed, she dreams a lot. So, she got dreams and visions to warn people of this divine judgment. And, as we all know, very conveniently, I cannot confirm that you had a dream, so I just have to take your word for it. But she, fortunately, was viewed very skeptically by everybody and by the mainstream religious leaders per se. And then we have got Walk of Shame, number 9, Mr. David Ogubeli from The Voice of the Last Days in Nigeria. Also an independent minister, preaches that he is a final generation prophet, warning of the rapture and the tribulation. And he uses radio and social media a lot to spread his end time messages. He's not linked to any violence, but they are considered very extreme by his theological peers.
But for the second time, you say somebody is not linked to violence. I've been telling people that the world is ending. It's so violent, but
it's true.
It's frightening to some people who are believers.
It's true. It's true. And to tell that to young children, this is my big issue with religion as a whole, is just the fact that they tell this to young children and they scare the living Jesus out of these children with these tales of hellfire and these tales of doom and gloom. It's I find that is the worst part of it. But what do you guys think makes these apocalyptic messages so compelling? Especially in regions where people face political instability, or they've got limited access to education and subsequent poverty that comes with that. What is, what makes this messaging so compelling that people gravitate towards it?
I think it's the sun. The sun is the first one to start this this culture. You remember, he was sitting with people at the Mount of Olives. And the big man said, this generation is not going to pass away before these things happen.
And that was a lie. That was a lie. A
Yeah,
bold-faced lie. They all
generations
did. They all did.
So, traditions don't die easy. Everybody has been mimicking him.
Yeah, yeah. But do you think that, what do you think it is? Is it our built-in sense of justice, or our built-in sense of needing things to be equalized? Like, why do we, is it because we see so much evil in the world that we think like, fuck, there has to be some form of judgment? Or, I don't know what it is on a psychological level that makes this idea so palatable that people just want to eat it. They just go like, give me some apocalypse. I want all of the apocalypse.
Mm. But as a Christian, you know how much Christians want people to die.
Yeah, it's a death cult.
There's something that is exciting about it. If one is just listening to this program now and they're a Christian, they say, yeah, hear these people. You know, they are going to hell. They are going to ban these ones. So that desire to see people die, it's very strong in some believers.
Yeah. It's true. It's like, you know, you get those Christians, they want to stand on the edge of heaven and look over at hell and see the people burn, you know, like, and then they say, look at them burning down there.
Yeah, you remind me of the parable that Jesus gave. Was it a parable or what? Of Lazarus sitting on the chest of Abraham, and on the other side looking at the rich person burning and asking for a drop of water to put on his tongue.
Yes.
Do you remember that verse?
I do. I remember it. Yeah.
Yes, maybe they see them in that position.
Can I say something and request that you guys mute yourselves so that we can reduce my feedback? I know I am the culprit. My apologies. Yes. Why is there a tendency to have a lot of apocalyptic prophecies in Africa and in my country specifically? It seems like we are the reigning champions in that list, that wall of shame. Kenya is overrepresented. We took the cup. And in fact, I'll have you know that a good majority of the people you have cited come from the coastal region of our country. The one that initiated the Shakahola massacre, targeted people from the coast. This one, William Moitale also, and Eliud Mangale from Mombasa. There's something about individuals from that region, but generally speaking, Kenya, we tend to believe those end time prophecies. I believe it's an amalgam of things. The first one is what you guys have pointed out. I think human beings have the tendency to seek divine justice because earth is hard. Oh gosh, we live in a tough economy. Our government is corrupt. Nothing is working. Our healthcare system is collapsing. Our police are brutal, killing our youth left, right, and center. People are frustrated with how things are on planet Earth, and they're looking for something that will give them hope. So these prophets of doom, in as much as it's doom, for those who are on the right side of history or on the right side of their beliefs, their faith, will have nothing but milk and honey to enjoy, while the ones that are evil will face the consequences of their actions. So there's that need in humans to have justice, cosmic justice. And this is what an apocalypse does. The second reason is that we have holy texts that are apocalyptic in nature. Christianity in particular, and it's so ironic. We had this discussion last month on the book of Revelation. We had Atheist Bible study, and we were looking at the book of Revelation. Revelation is actually...
I love atheist Bible. I love it.
Yes. You look at those books from a critical lens, not just what you are told. Yeah. So we were looking at the book of Revelation, and we found out it is actually an apocalyptic, propagandistic piece of literature. Yeah, it was written in order to give the people of the early Christian communities within the island of Patmos, some sense of hope. And it was also written in order to get justice, get divine justice for people who had been oppressed for so long. So the things that were written in Revelation, many of them were tied to people's morality. If you live a sinful life, you will be judged. You know, there was the judgment day, there was the mark of the beast, there was there were the seals, and then there were the signs that were sent of droughts and earthquakes or pestilence, illness, starvation. All of this came as signs of the end times. So many of these apocalyptic preachers use the content from the book of Revelation in order to justify their assertions. So the fact that it exists in holy text is great fodder for people to follow along. That's why we are the reigning champions of apocalyptic propaganda.
Yeah, so you guys are in the apocalyptic Olympics.
Yeah, but how can a person understand Revelation? Because Revelation, I think, in that island of Patmos, we must check what is planted there. But there's something that that John was serving there. So it has something to do with the coastal region, as you say, because there's a sea there. In Mombasa, there's a sea also. But west there on the comments is talking about the equator also. Because, you know, the closer you are to the equator, the more religious you become. I wonder if you have noticed.
I don't know if that's true 100%, you know, because you, I mean, I'm not saying that it's the rule, because there are some very, very big exceptions to that rule, but it makes sense, you know, it makes sense. The sun is baking the brain, and people just go. the brain is in an oven, you know, so it's getting very hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the question now, you know, when does a religious figure cross the line between this being a spiritual guide and being a dangerous cult figure? You know, like, what are the warning signs? You know, like, what are the warning signs that we must look out for? Because, you know, if I can just see a priest and I'm like, hide the kids, hide the kids.
I think it starts there where a person comes and says, God told me this and this. You must give them that look. God told you that. When? They like to talk about that. If a person starts talking about what God told them in their dreams, or who's the one from Nigeria who would say they even had a tea with God and God said this and this? You know, that old man with a big voice. When they start talking things like that.
And who was it from here, from South Africa? Was it Mboro?
Mboro.
Yeah.
Mboro also.
He also met God, you know, and he had. Yeah. And who's the one that had the video footage in heaven?
It's Mboro who had pictures from heaven.
But even Bushiri was doing the same thing.
Yeah. So the control starts there if they claim privileges that are abnormal, that don't happen to normal people. Whoever is going to believe that really there was this tea party where their pastor was, then they are not going to question them. He says, then God told me that you'll be wearing that dress today, and he said, no, you must take it off, that one. He doesn't like it.
Yeah, but this is what we need to do, is when somebody says, God says, or God told me, we must stop them dead in their tracks, right there and then. We demand evidence for this conversation, you know.
Yeah, just laugh at them. Laugh at them seriously. But religious people are not like that. They want to please their leader every time. That is why if the leader comes and stands in front of them and says, boom, then they fall.
They fall. What's that? That Holy Ghost fire.
Yes, I also think when should we, the question was, when should we get concerned, right? Regarding these apocalyptic predictions. I think we should start getting concerned when the person says that we are no longer of any earthly good and we need to prepare for the end, because that person might start making you bring on the end yourself, because that's exactly what happened with the Shakahola massacre. The person said the world is ending, Reverend Mackenzie, and then he made those people starve themselves to death so that they could go and meet Jesus. So we need to start worrying when this person categorically tells people, kind of to help God. Yeah, God requires your assistance in bringing the world to an end when they tell you.
Jim Jones.
Aha, yes, the Jim Joneses of this world, the devilish Koreshis of this world. Yeah. Then I think even backtracking on and piggybacking on what you just said, Bolelang, I think when people start to make grandiose claims, for instance, the person on the flyer for this meeting, Prophet Owuor, has been at the heart of apocalyptic claims. Of course, for this one in August 2nd, he retracted and said, "Oh, I was misquoted," and we can give him the benefit of the doubt because I tried to find original footage of him making that prophecy and I didn't. So we can give him the benefit of the doubt for this one. But in the past, he has made a lot of grandiose predictions. Starting from 03, he said that he conversed with John the Baptist, and John the Baptist entered into him. And there were other prophets like Elijah, Daniel, and Moses. In fact, he calls himself the mightiest prophet of Yahweh. A prophet, actually, in plural, because he says there are two witnesses that were mentioned in Revelations 11. Again, that book, very notorious, brought a lot of her. So he says there are two witnesses that were mentioned in the book of Revelation 11 that predicted the end times. So he is that prophet. And only God, not even Jesus, not angels, only God and the prophet of God are the ones who know when the end times will come, because the prophet has to share the message with the people. You see how grandiose that is. Yeah. Right. Another grandiose claim he made was in 06 that God gave him a note from heaven and he got golden rings. He also claimed that he was the one that brought COVID-19 in Kenya. You people, you joke with me. I can bring pestilence into this country. Then he said that there were stars, there were neuron stars that collided. He's the one that brought it upon people. And then now, of course, he keeps making predictions about earthquakes and what have you. And some of them Of course, if you predict that an earthquake will occur, of course it will occur. Somewhere in the world, there will be an earthquake. That is not rocket science. But the part I have to emphasize is that one of making grandiose claims and eventually trying to set you apart from the rest of society and encouraging you to end your life, to get to that end of the world sooner rather than later. I think that is a cause for concern.
Yeah. You know, my thing is, as soon as that prophet reaches for the calendar, when they pull the calendar closer to circular date, that's when we need to worry. Because as soon as they commit themselves to a date, that's when we know, okay, shit's going down. Now the shit's going to go down. And I think that is the worrying, the warning signs, you know.
In fact, I grew inside such an organization because Jehovah's Witnesses also, they've been predicting about the return of Jesus Christ. From 18 something, then 1914, 1935, 1975.
They love that.
No, because when you talk about the calendar, immediately they go to a calendar and pinpoint a day. Then they say, a date.
But this is the you know, there's a psychology beneath this that we need to talk about, you know, and it's just, you know, like the psychological mechanisms, cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias, you know, and all of these things play into you know, to this cycle of people believing, you know, the end is near, and then when that date comes and goes, then they'll just move it ahead again, you know. So there's a psychological mechanism that's at play here. But you know, what I wanted to touch on as well is that you know, there's this risk of labeling these movements as African problems. You know, so we you know, how can we discuss these things without reinforcing these colonial stereotypes about the dark continent having irrational beliefs? Oh, they just irrational. They, you know, and that is the thing that I think that is the most important thing that I really wanted to highlight for us to talk about today. Is people will see these crazy pastors and they see these things that go down in these cults, you know, and they first say, "Oh no, that's African church's problem," you know, like that's an African problem, you know, like it's not.
They'll be lying.
Yeah,
I've just mentioned an American religion.
Yeah,
that has been predicting the end of the world. I've got a list here about different people who have been doing it. And I'm telling you, on this list, most of the people that are here, they're not African. The African thing is just now lately because they would like to catch up and have their big organizations like Catholic as a big organization, Seventh-day Adventists, you see, they've got a global thing. They want to get into that league, and they are playing catch up. So we cannot be accused about what we learned from them.
Yeah, it's almost like people won't take you serious unless there's some flavor of apocalypse in your church.
You're a good pastor if you scare people enough to do something.
You have to scare them to part with their money.
Yes, I agree. I think that question is important, Dean, on how we can talk about these things without seeming imperialistic. I think we ought to consider that aspect. Regardless we should also speak the truth. Sometimes, in a bid not to offend, we cover up the truth. It is a fact that many Africans are religious. The West is becoming less religious. Africans are clinging onto that title very strongly. It's a fact. So where there is religion, there is also a likelihood of doomsday predictions, prophecies, and all of the harm that comes from that kind of thinking. So if it is happening, we have to call it out. But we mustn't paint it as just being an African phenomenon by one, letting the Africans talk about it themselves. You know, if it is Westerners pointing fingers, oh, you black people, all you know is religion. You build churches instead of building schools or hospitals. It will seem paternalistic and colonialist because it's coming from them. But if it's coming from me, it's coming from Bolelang, it's coming from Dean, a white South African, but he's an African nonetheless, then people are likely to give more credence. So that's one aspect. If we ourselves talk about it, and also what Bolelang mentioned, if we cite historical examples of non-African cults or doomsday predictions to show that it is a human phenomenon, it is not just an African one.
Yeah, it's very tricky, you know, and the thing is, you know, if you think you have it hard attacking a religion, you know, like go and try to attack a doomsday cult, and then you'll see another story altogether. But it's a, you know, it's a matter of I think it's just a matter of education. I mean, a matter of a secular education that includes skepticism and you know, like these are the effective counterweights to the rise of this apocalyptic flavor in Africa specifically. You know, but the thing is just you know, skepticism and critical thinking, that's not promoted in schools. You know, like the first thing they will teach an African child in school is either to say dua or to pray. That's the first thing that an African child learns in school. And until we can change that, you know, to maybe focus people in a different direction, and it's going to come from, it has to come from inside the house. No amount of, you know, people shouting outside the house from America or Europe or whatever is going to change
or
this.
An intervention.
Yeah, it's not good. No. It has to come from inside the house. That's
But
where
Trump can help us. If we tell Trump, Trump can help.
I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. But now, you know, we have to also mention that trauma, you know, like trauma plays a role in this, you know, whether it is a personal trauma, historical trauma, or societal trauma. It drives people towards this apocalypse idea. And I think it's again that, you know, that sense of trying to find justice, you know, and, you know, people get so desperate and wrapped up in their own cycles of struggle and poverty and whatever to, you know, by the end of it, it seems like a blessing and a release to be alleviated of all the suffering and misery that they have suffered, you know. So trauma definitely plays a role in this as well. And the way that, you know, that people report on this as well in the media, you know, gives this whole, it almost becomes like the trauma Olympics again, you know. It's, you know, people have exploited. If you speak to anybody off the continent of Africa about Africa, the first thing that comes to their mind is a hungry African child standing in a dusty street holding a cup
to the aid workers. You know, like, it's weird how all these stereotypes and things play into it, and then it becomes internalized. You know, it almost becomes like an internal dialogue where if somebody tells you your whole life, oh, you're ugly, you're useless, you never amount to anything, you start to believe it, you know. And I think it's that internalized trauma that's also driving people towards this apocalyptic vision, you know, where they think, oh, fuck it, what have I got to lose? You know, like, I've got nothing to lose here, you know, we might as well just step on the petrol and drive it faster. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's my sense of it.
Yeah, the sense of resignation.
Exactly. Yeah.
But look, the way that I see it also is that every society passes through phases.
Yeah.
This phase where people don't have hope, most in Africa, even in Europe and other places, they have passed it. And it seems it is accompanied also by high religiosity, where people don't see hope in this life and they would like to die and be somewhere else. Suicide cults.
Yes, I agree, Bolelam. I think a cult and a cult leader is actually a very smart individual. They know how to get their marks. They find vulnerable people, people who don't belong, people who've been traumatized, people who don't have a fallback, they don't have a support system, and they lure them in with the promise that they will give them those things that they are missing, that they will fix them, they will heal their trauma. Alas, when they join, that isn't the case. By the way, I wanted to touch on something else you brought up. I don't know whether you'll bring it up later or just confirm for me. Why do they stay regardless of the field process? We talked about some psychological aspects.
Yeah.
Can I comment about that?
Yes, please do.
I think it's fascinating. If you study psychology, all of this irrational religious behavior will make so much sense to you. Like, it will make so much sense. The first phenomenon that applies is cognitive dissonance, which is defined as the psychological discomfort that arises when you are faced with two contradictory beliefs. Usually, in order to alleviate the psychological discomfort, you double down on the belief that accounts for your worldview. In this case, it is those prophecies or it is their faith. That's what has defined their lives for so long. Even if there's contradictory evidence that he made a prediction, the world is going to end on this date and the time has come, it has not. But you realize, oh my gosh, this faith, this group, it has become such an important part of me. So I am going to discard that evidence and I am going to make some adjustments in my current position in order to deal with the cognitive dissonance. So that's one component. Another one, I think, is the social support. We just talked about trauma and how these cult leaders know how to lure people that have been traumatized. So once they go there, they find social support, which is so hard to come by outside, given their background. And they ask themselves, what do I stand to lose? Do I go for truth and remain isolated? Or do I fall for the lie and maintain my social support system, my community? And many choose the latter. That's why even on the comment, somebody will say that 1884 prediction, it actually made the group have even more followers. So and the other one I think that is really crucial is the is confirmation bias, cherry picking, or selective interpretation, especially for that Prophet Owuor. I took a look at some of his channels and some of his websites. Actually, he's got such a good PR team. I think our society, Skeptics and Ethics Society of Kenya, needs to borrow a leaf from Prophet Owuor. He's a master. So what they do is of Prophet Owuor making a prediction, like there's going to be an earthquake. He won't mention the time or the date. He won't mention the geographical location. He'll be as ambiguous as it gets. But he'll describe the details of the earthquake. Or elevators will be moving. People will be saying, they'll be running away. I don't know what. Yeah, so he'll just describe the scenario, but he will not give the specifics of the event. Then, when an earthquake occurs, as we said, there's bound to be an earthquake. At least every year, somewhere in the world, there's bound to be an earthquake. So there'll be an earthquake, and they'll say, you see, the mightiest prophets of God predicted that there will be an earthquake, and in just 6 months, the prophecy was fulfilled. So they peddle that as proof that he is indeed the man of God. God is speaking through him. And there are dozens of other videos where they do that confirmation bias, where they cherry pick the few cases of success, with success in quotes because it's not even specific, as long as a prophecy is not time bound and it hasn't mentioned the specific circumstances under which the prophecy is to be fulfilled, the location, etc., then it isn't a prophet. Actually, all prophets are false prophets. So once they see that instance, that something happened right after he made this big declaration, they attribute it to him and they say, you see, he is a man of God. So I think that is one of the reasons why they still hang on, because they have a very good PR team that peddles the wins and downplays the losses.
Yeah, that's, it's very interesting that you say that, because it's, I think there's a couple of different factors that have to be present before a group of people becomes susceptible to a charismatic cult leader, and then for the cult leader also needs to go through evolution themselves, because I really doubt that there was a guy that woke up one morning and said, oh, I'm going to start a cult and I'm going to get everybody to off themselves in the forest. It's like, it must be an evolution of this person realizing, wow, look at all this control I have over these people. And then a month or a year later, he's going like, I think I can let these people do stupid things if I just tell them, and then they do it. And he's going like, wow, I have so much power, and then it makes them crazy. And then after 3-4 years, he's going like, I wonder if this person
keep on pushing the boundary.
Exactly, and I also think it's that process where you put a frog in a pot of water that's cold and you turn the fire on, the frog will stay in the water until it's cooked, It's not going to jump out because the water is nice and warm, So it's the same process. These things happen slowly over a period of time, and then they just develop into these, David Koresh cults and, the Reverend Moon who speaks to the aliens. It's crazy. But guys, we are nearing the end of our show. Let me just ask both of you in conclusion. Excuse me. you know, what can we as skeptics and secular communities do to support people who are trying to leave these cults? And I mean, it's very seldom that you will ever encounter somebody who's in a cult because they are so strictly controlled and isolated. But if we see this in people, you know, like what can we do or say to prevent them from joining in the first place? You know, when we, you know, we all have that aunt that loves to read the horoscopes, and the next day she reads the apocalyptic prophets newsletter, and then she wants to sell the house and move to the what can we say to our family members and friends or other people when we see the warning signs of these cults pop up?
I think the first thing is just to be honest about what I think about religion, beliefs, so that people know that it's normal to question these things.
Yeah.
Because now, more and more around me, I see people now who ask these questions about religions. Whereas before, I used to get a lot of resistance, but now I get people who are questioning together with me, or who are now willing to sit down with me and say, you know, I thought you were crazy about this thing, but I saw something also myself, and I think I'm going to follow you, but this thing of yours is craziness. But you can hear that people are shifting because they know that it's normal to question.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Yes, indeed. We must be proactive. I think by the time somebody has joined a cult or they are believing a doomsday prophet, it might be too late. They are too far deep for them to see logic. I remember my friend who is on her way out of religion, I believe. She's been questioning and she's always asking why is the Bible saying this? Why is the Bible saying that? But she still calls herself a Catholic. And she told me that she has a sister who has joined a group. It isn't Prophet Owuor's, but they behave like Prophet Owuor, because Prophet Owuor dictates to his followers how they dress. They actually have that dress code. They wear really long coats, and then women are meant to cover their hair. Men are required to wear suits, and then when they pray, they should wear sackcloth. He also requires them to do hero worship. Yeah, that telltale sign of a cult leader. Hero worship. They wash the roads with soap when he's about to come to town for a crusade. Yet you might find that person has not fed his family lunch, but he finds money to buy soap to wash the road so that Prophet Owuor walks on clean streets. Yeah, it's that ridiculous. So the behavior my friend's sister was exhibiting was typical of the ones that the Repentance and Holiness Ministry of Prophet Owuor was exhibiting. Her sister was covering herself. Her sister was isolating herself. Her sister was devoting her resources. All the little money that she was making would be going to the church. She was obsessed with the group, the cult she belongs to, and all of her actions were informed by what the cult leader or their pastor was saying. Yeah. So she started observing those behaviors, and after the Shakahola massacre. And she was like, gosh, Dorcas, how do I help my sister? How can I get her? How can I get her out of that matrix, so to speak? And I told her that maybe you can consider using case studies of other cults. you show them what were the telltale signs. What did they miss in those groups? And then show her the similarities between those groups and yours. For instance, the case in Nigeria of, what's this guy called? There was an expose on BBC. There was a Nigerian.
There's so many.
There's so many.
Yes, there's so many. But there was one last year.
Joshua.
Joshua.
Yes, TB Joshua. There you go. So there was that expose by TB Joshua. And oh my gosh, he is a poster boy for cult leaders and cultic practices. A poster boy to the T. So that's what I got. I told her, please get the BBC documentary. And I even shared notes. I made notes from the BBC documentary, all the series that they released on TB Joshua. And I highlighted the telltale signs of being in a cult and how all those people were deceived. So I shared my notes and I shared with her the link to the BBC expose. I said, give it a try. Share it with your loved one and hopefully she'll be able to open her eyes. So that would be a reactive approach, but the best strategy is proactive. Talk about these things before they get entrapped. Let's be ambassadors of critical thinking and reasoning in our immediate circles, whether they are real world interactions, when you're having coffee with your friends, talk about those things, but also on social media. I love what the two of you are doing. I follow you on TikTok, and hey, keep it up. There's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you, guys. Well, guys, let's leave it there for today. Again, I just want to thank our audience for sitting through with us. And if you guys feel the need for a community, if you need to connect with other atheists, there is an atheist organization in every single part of the world. I am 100% convinced of it. You can go to any country on the continent of Africa and you're going to find atheists there. You can go to any continent on the planet, you're going to find people who don't believe the nonsense. So you are never alone. You always have a community. Find your community online. Stay skeptical. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. And the world is not going to end tomorrow.
And that's not dress code.
Exactly. This motherfucker thinking the world's going to end tomorrow. And what's he going to say on Monday? I was wrong. And then everybody's, honestly, any day now. They didn't nail Jesus to a boomerang. They nailed him to a cross. He's not coming flying back anytime. Take care, guys. Stay skeptical, and we'll see you on the flip side.